Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy, Roll Good. Today we are continuing our series for the base class changes for martial characters in the Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook for 2024. Today we're talking about Rangers, and Rangers have been pretty refreshingly redone. I think there's one aspect of the changes to the Ranger base class that people aren't necessarily hype about. I completely understand why, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So what are we working with here? So as far as the core traits go, there hasn't been a lot of changes. The one change across all the classes, and again, I'll mention it in every video, is that the starting equipment has been changed from a variety of different equipment selections to now option A being an equipment package, and then option B being optional starting wealth. And how this works out from 2014 is that it's usually about average or slightly above average of the total roll in the starting wealth in 2014. And then as far as multi-class inheritance goes, and again, multi-class inheritance is what do you get if you take your first level in Ranger from another class. The only thing that has changed from the core traits here is that simple weapon proficiency has been removed. And this is only because all classes now get simple weapon proficiency baseline. Some of them used to have scattered proficiencies with only specific weapons, but now every class has simple weapon proficiency. Moving on to level 1, favored enemy has been changed. So this has been changed to say that you always have Hunter's Mark prepared. You can cast it 2 times without a spell slot per long rest. This is increased to 3 at level 3, and then up to 4 times at level 5. This used to basically grant an additional language associated with a certain creature type, as well as advantage on wisdom survival checks to track them, and intelligence checks to recall information about them. It is kind of sad to see that these other features are going, because exploration kind of gets overlooked a lot, but when these things come up, they're always useful. Like this easily could have been a ribbon feature somewhere else, or just even added. But you get like even just one additional language and wisdom survival checks on something. They could have worked this in some way. I think there's a big complaint here about the Ranger class where they kind of took things away and then just didn't really replace it with anything. Like we always had access to Hunter's Mark. I mean, getting it free a couple times per day, I don't know if is worth the same thing. Although it is still pretty strong, because that frees up a lot of your spell slots for other things. Moving on to spell casting, we can see that it's available at level 1. This is up from level 2, making Rangers a true half-caster, much like the Paladin now. They can prepare spells up from knowing them, although, again, they're using the word prepared very loosely in 2024. It does not mean prepared the way that we thought in 2014, where it was like the cleric and the druid, where they have their whole spell list to choose from every morning, and then they can switch out what spells they have prepared. As far as the Ranger is considered, prepared still effectively means known, where you're picking certain spells, and then maybe when you level up in that class, you can switch out like one of those spells. It still works basically exactly the same as known spells in 2014. You can prepare up to 15 spells by level 19, up from quote-unquote knowing 11 spells. And now you can use a druidic focus to assist in the casting of your spells, whereas previously you didn't have a spell casting focus. So you if you were playing super rules as written, you actually needed to have the components or a component pouch on you to cast your spells. They also added the weapon mastery feature at level 1. Again, this is across a lot of the martial classes, most of them. Rangers get 2 of them at level 1. They can switch them both out, or one or both out after a long rest. And they don't get any more masteries as a base class. So unlike the Barbarian and the Fighter, who get up to 4 or up to 6 in the case of the Fighter, weapon masteries, the Ranger only ever gets 2, but they can switch them out every long rest. Natural Explorer, this feature has been removed, but it's been kind of moved to the Deft Explorer feature at level 2. So we'll take a look at that in a second. And much like I said in the Paladin video, all creatures can now ritually cast any ritual spell they know. It does not need to be something that you got as part of the spellcasting feature. It can be through Magic Initiate, it can be through any feat or feature that gives you access to a ritual spell. Even if you don't have the spellcasting feature, you can ritually cast any spell that you know. Moving on to the Ranger spell list changes, and again, we're only comparing the 2014 Player's Handbook to the 2024 Player's Handbook. So if you're in a situation where you're only playing with 2024 rules forward and not using previous supplements, this is now what is published in that book that wasn't there before. So at level 1, you have Entangle. At level 2, you have Aid, Enhance Ability, Magic Weapon, and Summon Beast. At level 3, you have Dispel Magic, Elemental Weapon, Meld into Stone, Revivify, and Summon Fae. At level 4, you have Dominate Beast, Summon Elemental. And then at level 5, you have Greater Restoration and Steel Wind Strike. So this is the vast majority of these were included in previous supplements, such as Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Again, if you're in a situation where you can use older books, your DM may still permit you to use some of the missing spells that were on those expanded spell lists. If you're on D&D Beyond and you go to the classes and you scroll all the way down to the legacy version of the classes and you go to the optional section, you can see what a lot of those spells are. And then any spell on this list that is marked with an asterisk is new to that base class. We can see that Dispel Magic and Steel Wind Strike are completely new to the Ranger, which is nice to see. Moving on to level 2 features, we have Deft Explorer. This is replacing the Natural Explorer option. This is an optional feature that was in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It grants expertise in a skill with which the Ranger is proficient, and it grants 2 additional languages. So this is kind of making up for the loss of Favored Enemy. The languages that you got from Favored Enemy, you just now get 2 more languages, which is nice. And then you get a Fighting Style. And this is at level 2. You always get fighting styles at level 2 for the Ranger, but now the Druidic Warrior was added to the player's handbook. So again, the Druidic Warrior means you learn 2 Druid cantrips of your choice. Those cantrips count as Ranger spells for you, and Wisdom is your spellcasting modifier for them. And then whenever you gain a Ranger level, you can replace one of those cantrips with another Druid cantrip. So you could technically be a spellcasting Ranger. I don't know why you would do that. You don't like you have the ability to you have extra attack, so you can do a lot of damage as a Ranger. I think Shillelagh is a pretty good choice if you want to be a Martial Ranger with either a quarterstaff or a club. You can now actually use Wisdom as your primary attacking ability, and then have your spell save DC be the highest it can be for your spells as well. So I think that's possibly a pretty good option. But let's move on to level 3. So level 3, we just see that Primeval Awareness was removed. This is the thing that kind of allowed you to see like certain beasts or monstrosities within a certain range. It was kind of useful, kind of not. It was kind of nice to know what was around you, but it never really gave you the right information. Maybe your mileage with it varied, but I've had some Rangers in my games, and I never really saw it used to any real great effect, other than knowing that there's monsters around you. And of course, it's like, yeah, we know that, but if you had a very good use of this that you saw, then definitely let me know down in those comments. But I'm not going to miss this one too much. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything did have an optional feature called Primal Awareness that granted you a handful of extra spells, and this is also missing from the 2024 Ranger, with no comparable thing in its place, maybe other than the fact that you have a more robust spell list now, but these are things that are not automatically prepared. So yeah, I mean, there's just something missing here at level 3 that was previously there. Moving on to level 6, we have Roving. Again, this was added from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Previously this was an extension of Deft Explorer, but now it's just a separate feature. It says that your speed increases to 10 feet, or speed increases by 10 feet, I'm sorry, whereas previously it was only 5 feet. And now you also have a climb speed and a swim speed equal to your speed. So if you started off with a 30 speed in your class, now goes up to 40 feet, and then you have a climb speed and swim speed of 40 feet, which is pretty cool if it comes in handy. Moving on to level 8, we see Land's Stride. Land's Stride was previously something that basically allowed you to go through non-magical difficult terrain without expending any extra movement. It probably was useful when it came up, but it's kind of a ribbon feature here, but it was just removed, which is sad to see. So moving on, we got at level 9, Expertise, which is not something that the Ranger necessarily had before. So you gain expertise in 2 skills with which you have proficiency, which is nice. So that's the Deft Explorer, I think, gives you 1 or 2 as well. So you have 3 or 4 expertises as a Ranger, which is really good. Moving on to level 10, we can see that they added a feature called Tireless. It grants you temporary hit points as an action equal to 1d8 plus your Wisdom modifier, and you can do this a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier per long rest. And this also allows you to recover up to 1 level of exhaustion per short rest. And we'll see how, it's going to be really interesting on when they publish adventures for post 2024, if they make exhaustion a bigger deal. I could go on, maybe I'll make a bonus video about exhaustion, because I just hate the new exhaustion rules. I hated all the new exhaustion rules that they ever proposed in the playtest. I don't know why people liked them. My problem with exhaustion was never that the rules didn't make sense or that whatever. My only problem with exhaustion is that it never came up, so there was no risk to willingly taking levels of exhaustion, which is things that even I, as a player, that I would do sometimes. But yeah, I agree that, I mean, in my opinion, exhaustion is arguably worse or more punishing in 2024. So this feature is actually pretty decent if you're a level 10 ranger, that if you do get exhaustion, that you can take short rests and kind of lower those levels of exhaustion, because it gets pretty punishing pretty fast. Again, at level 10, there's another feature called Relentless Hunter. Again, it's a new feature that says that damage can't break concentration on Hunter's Mark. So not only do we have Hunter's Mark always prepared, not only do we have, I think it's like 4 free casts of it per long rest, but now concentration, damage can't break the concentration. I kind of wish they made it so that you just don't break concentration, or that it doesn't require concentration. Maybe that's too strong to not require concentration, but you know, like things like Sleet Storm or any other effects that can challenge your concentration will still apply here. But it's still nice. You know, damage is the usual thing that challenges your concentration, so it's still a very good feature when you're using Hunter's Mark. Moving on to level 14, we have Nature's Veil. This was added to the player's handbook from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It was moved to level 14, whereas it used to be level 10. You gain the invisible action as a bonus action until the end of your turn, and you can use this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier per long rest, down from proficiency bonus. So if you ever get your wisdom modifier up to a +6 by the end of the game, then it's exactly the same as your proficiency bonus. But if you only end with a +5, then it's technically you lost one use for it that you used to have before. This is very similar to the Vanish feature that was previously in the 2014 rules. So moving on, Precise Hunter. So again, this is a new feature, and it says you have advantage on attack rolls against a creature currently marked by your Hunter's Mark. So again, they're tripling down on you using Hunter's Mark. I think, again, this was one of the features that people were just not happy about, because it just feels like, okay, I just need to be casting Hunter's Mark all the time, or I just don't have any certain features. But I mean, I would challenge you to look at the features that you have in your class right now, if you're currently playing any existing campaign or adventure or one-shot or whatever, and ask yourself, how often do you use every one of those features every day? Because it's probably not, 100% of the time. So I think this is perfectly fine to kind of benefit Hunter's Mark in this way. Would it be nice to see other features that do other things? Possibly, but those are things that you'd probably even maybe be using less often than this one. So, we'll have to see how it plays out. I think these are fine changes. It makes Hunter's Mark feel better to cast, maybe just a little bit, at least at higher levels, that knowing that it won't break concentration from damage, and it gives you permanent advantage on creatures, although there are other ways to get good advantage, but this is fine. Moving on to level 18, there's Feral Senses. This gives you blind sight out to 30 feet. Previously, this was from no disadvantage fighting invisible creatures, and awareness of presence of non-hidden invisible creatures within 30 feet, unless blinded or deafened. The only real change here, the only effective change, is that it can be used while you are blinded or deafened, because you have blind sight, right? So this is actually a slight buff from the old Feral Senses. And then again, at level 19, just like every other class, they have epic boons unlocked. And again, this is not class level 19, this is character level 19 that epic boons become available. So if you are a multi-class character for whatever reason, and let's say you get your character level 19 and then you take that at like level 4 in another class when you get an ASI, then you can choose an epic boon feat from that list instead of a general feat. Lastly, at level 20, we have Foe Slayer. Again, this is a new level 20 feature. The Hunter's Mark damage increases from 1d6 to 1d10. This used to be extra damage equal to your wisdom on an attack roll once per turn against a favorite enemy. So against a favorite enemy, this is probably once per turn. I mean, even then, Hunter's Mark is against every attack, right? So it's as long as you're hitting your targets, this is going to be more damage, and it's going to be more damage against more different creatures. So again, yeah, they quadrupled down now on Hunter's Mark, and again, I think that's fine. It would be nice to see, a more powerful capstone than 1d6 to 1d10, but 1d10 on every attack is still very good. Of course, it does require Hunter's Mark. If you want to homebrew different bonuses for your rangers, especially if they get to 20th level, let them play around a little bit more and maybe not require Hunter's Mark. One thing I would have liked to see, actually, for Hunter's Mark, and one thing I would have loved, is if they gave it the the favored foe treatment from the, I think it was Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, the option rule for favored foe, where you cast it on hit and it doesn't require your bonus action. It's just something that when you hit a target, you say, okay, I'm concentrating on this now. And then I get the extra damage on that hit and every subsequent hit after. That's the one thing that I would have loved to see for a change to Hunter's Mark. But it's still a bonus action and you have to move it as a bonus action. That's what I would love to see. Hit the target, apply it to the target, and then when they fall dead, you can hit a new target and apply that same Hunter's Mark to the new target. That's the big change that I would make to Hunter's Mark, just to make it feel a little better and still have your bonus action open for other things. Because that's the one thing that, even about current Hunter's Mark, that I like the least, is it always eats your bonus action to move it to the new target. And I think even with the, you know, kind of spoiler alert in the future, I believe one of the Paladin, the Vengeance Paladin, their main feature, I think, can be moved freely from one target to the other, or it's free to activate at least, and then you have to have bonus action movement. I can't remember how it works out, but they've made similar changes to other classes, so very surprised that they didn't do it here. And now looking at the summary of the base Ranger, we can see that, again, Primal Awareness or Primeval Awareness was just flat out removed, Landstride removed, Vanish removed, but sort of replaced by Nature's Veil, although Nature's Veil and Vanish and Hide in Plain Sight were all very similar features. It's not surprising me that they pruned them and kind of replaced them with other things. But overall, I mean, you get some expertise, you get, you know, Tireless is a new feature, Relentless, all the buffs to, what do you call it? All the buffs to Hunter's Mark are very good. Again, you get 4 free per day, and you have plenty of other spells that you'll be using, but you know, 4 free Hunter's Marks is probably all the Hunter's Marks that you need, unless you're just going back to back to back to back in combat through, you know, just like a gauntlet. But even then, like, I'm overall very satisfied with the changes to the Rangers class. There's not really that I'm unhappy about. I mean, I can understand I really understand the complaints about, you know, feeling like you're pigeonholed into using Hunter's Mark, but I really don't think that's the case. You're going to be using Hunter's Mark sometimes, and then those features are relevant then. But again, you weren't using every feature of your class on every fight and every encounter. So I think this is perfectly fine. Again, we can see based on this that, again, basically just buffed across the board. A lot of just things that weren't very useful all the time were removed. I'm not really sad about any of it. So if you disagree, let me know down in those comments. You know, let me know what you didn't like or what you do like about the new Ranger. You know, if you've you know, played maybe a one-shot or two, let me know how it feels. But yeah, let me know down in those comments. You know, while you're on the way down to those comments, please hit that like button. Again, if you keep coming back to these videos and then you still haven't subscribed yet, again, just take the time. It's right under the video there. Just take the time to hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a lot. Doesn't cost nothing. But we're going to move on to the final martial base class changes, which is the Rogue. So I'll see you in that next video. Thank you.